Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Hello, hello. My name is Liz O'Brien. I'm the Honors Director at Phoenix College here, and I'm very happy to see all of you. We're really excited for our first big honors event this year. Can I see how many of you are honors students right now? Great. Okay, very good. Honors faculty. Good. Thank you for joining us. And staff at the college, faculty or staff at the college. Fantastic. Thank you. We have a very nice mix. What we're trying to do here is just create intellectual space for our entire community, whether you're honors or non-honors or faculty or staff. We are just hoping to provide some engaging opportunities for you over this semester to intellectually engage in some ways outside of their classroom. So please continue to join us, and if you like today's event, tell your friends. We have our whole sheet here of our honors events, right? I hope you grabbed one of those, or at least grab one on your way out. We also have some of our new bookmarks. So take some of those, put them in your books, take as many as you want, put them in all 5 of your books if you're taking 5 classes. And then we also have some other sheets up here if you're a President's Scholar, or if you're an Honors Achievement Awardee, or if you plan on graduating with the Honors Program. We have all sorts of goodies for you up here. We also have our stickers and our Smarties and our buttons. So did everybody get their honors swag, all your good stuff? Okay, so come on up and get it. I'm going to shut this door again. Yeah, it's loud over here. All right. Today, we are very excited to have Dr. Amy Marin from the Psychology Department, and she is going to be presenting one of her best lectures, and this is Optical Illusions, how our brain interprets, or our brain is the great interpreter. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Dr. Marin. We're due to get out of here at 12:45 today. We respect your time, so we will have you out of here, okay? But if you could stay for the duration, we'd appreciate that. So enjoy. Amy.
All right, well, welcome. I'm so glad to see everybody here. Like Liz said, I'm from the Psychology Department. I teach psychology classes there. This is a brown bag series. It's part of Best Lecture, where instructors try to pick a topic that they enjoy lecturing about, or where the students seem to get excited about, and share that with the larger PC community. I realized after we scheduled this that this may not be the best brown bag. There's a few illusions that sometimes make people feel a little strange. So I tried to move those motion illusions to the end, but it's sort of eat at your own risk, I guess, because things you might feel a little funny by the end of this presentation. Also want to mention, this is not the font I chose, so somewhere in the translation between my office computer and this one, we have this very freaky looking font, but we're just going to go with it. Hopefully everybody can still read it, but that was not at all what I selected. So let's get started. And what we're going to do first is to just look at some of the amazing things our brain is able to do, give you a little background on the visual system, and then we can really dive into the illusions. So what do you guys see here? Okay, horses. So can you find, there's I think 5 in there. There's some little ones and bigger ones. So it's amazing that your brain can look at a bunch of stuff that's very similar, and somehow you can pull out to those horses. We have to fill in the gaps, we have to group the information, and we have to pull it out against a background that's similar. So I'll show you some other kinds of images that are the same type of idea. This one here looks like a bunch of leaves, but eventually your brain's going to finally find the bug. You guys see that bug there? So it's that walking stick that disguises itself. And as soon as your brain finds it, we then tend to focus on it.
You guys, can we all turn off our phones? Just let's take the opportunity to do that now. Thank you. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So do you guys see it? And then it should kind of pop out at you, and then it's hard for it to go back in the background. Once our brain has decided that something's important, it then wants to continue to focus on that particular thing.
Amy, can you just point out the...
Oh, sure.
There's a couple people I think that are...
Okay, so the bug, this is the body of the bug and the head, and then these things are part of its, antenna, creepy things going on there. Yeah, if at any time you want me to slow down or you don't see what we're looking at, just let me know, and we'll make sure to do that. So here's an example here. We've got all these zebras, and your eye is probably going to go almost immediately to the woman in the center there. And of course, if it was just the opposite, if we had a whole field of women and there was one zebra, your eye would go to the zebra. So the brain tries to detect patterns, and it looks for things that don't make sense or are different from the other features that are in the rest of the image. The brain, again, loves to look at patterns. This particular series of beans here, there is a human face in there. So if you look long enough at the beans, you're eventually going to see the guy's head. Let's see who finds it first.
Is it big?
Nope, it's the size of a bean. Did you find it? Okay, so one person found it. He's right here. But once your brain finds it, again, you're going to find out that you're naturally drawn to that spot in the picture because you've now decided that that's an important thing to attune to. Okay, last one of these hidden images. You guys should all see a dog here, a Dalmatian with its head down, kind of walking away. And when you think about how amazing the brain is, here we have just a series of white and dark areas, and your brain has to instantly calculate a bunch of information, fill in the gaps, turn that into a dog. It's not even a dog that's in a typical pose that we're used to seeing. So we've got to identify that, and then we have to pull it out against a similar background. So the brain is incredible. And the way that we do this is to use a set of rules or laws or principles, and unfortunately in a half-hour talk we can't get into all the specifics of those, but sometimes in the process of using those rules and principles, the brain gets confused. And that's what happens with an optical illusion. All right, so an optical illusion is defined as a visually perceived image. So if it's optical, we're talking about the eye. And it's an image that's deceptive or misleading. So you might see something that's not there. In this particular case, we have these little flower petals that are completely stationary. They're not moving. But some of you may have the sensation that they look like they're rotating around, even though there's no motion part of the screen here. So somehow your brain is seeing something that's not actually happening. So I'm going to give you just a very brief idea of how our visual system works so that you can appreciate these optical illusions a little bit more. Now, when we think about how we see, most of us kind of have this general idea that there's an object. You know, we'd all agree, okay, there's an apple there. And it almost seems like the brain takes a picture, like with a camera, and then somehow stores these images. So that if we leave the room and I say, what did you see? You can just pull up your picture of the apple. But actually, a camera is a horrible analogy to our visual system. A camera may accurately record reality. The brain doesn't do that. Perception is not a mirror image of reality. A construction site is a much better analogy. We actually have to build reality from bits and pieces of information out in the world, and then from what the eye sees, and then how the brain interprets that. So this is a much more accurate, and you'll see why this is important when we see these optical illusions, because the brain is getting fooled at some point in this process. Okay, so vision has multiple steps. We've got the apple out there, and it has a whole bunch of qualities. It's giving off wavelengths of light, it's giving off molecules, has all these physical properties. Then that information has to go into the eye, and the eye has to then figure out what's going on and take all that information and then send it to the brain for interpretation. So there's a lot of place along here where things can go a little bit awry. And just to give you an idea of what the brain actually has to do, the eye and the brain, very quickly, if you're looking at an apple, or in this example, a boat, that image actually goes into the eye and is flipped upside down. So we see an upside down image to the eyeball. But somewhere between the eye and the back of the brain where vision's processed, it has to flip the image back over again. So there's a lot going on with vision. Okay, so we're going to look for a few minutes at this last step of interpretation. How is it, what factors influence how we interpret what we're seeing? And many things influence that, our personality, our culture, our life experiences, our context. Let's see, yeah, if you're up front, you'll get to see the illusions a little better. So we'll look at a few of these examples. So who in here would like to just describe for me what you think's going on in this picture here? It's not like a trick question. You know, what's this family doing, or where are they, or whatever? What would you say?
Mother, sons, and a group of friends or neighbors.
Okay, and where are they?
Well, wait, because my brain is really weird.
So their location.
Oh,
Are they inside? Are they outside?
that looks
What's
like a kind of Japanese living room that they actually have to sit in the floor. They don't have shoes, so basically I'm back down in front of the dog. You say don't allow dogs now.
Yeah, there's an animal for sure. So what's over the woman's head? A window. Maybe a picture frame. Okay, so from the West, we tend to immediately assume that these people are indoors and that above her head is, you know, a picture and so forth. But if you ask people in Eastern Africa, that don't have a lot of architecture in their world that has right angles and lines, they will immediately tell you the family's outside under the tree. So that's the first thing they'll say is the family's under the tree and the woman has a box or a can, on her head that she's carrying. So our culture affects perception. We can all be looking at the same thing, but depending on your life experiences, you might be seeing the inside of a room or you might be seeing people outside under a tree. A similar example here, it's a classic optical illusion called the Mueller-Lyer illusion. Most of us, when we look at those two vertical lines, we think they're the same, or we think that the one on the left is longer than the one on the right, when in reality they're the same length. This particular illusion does not work well for people that live in places that are more rural, where they don't have a lot of architecture. So again, this idea of the carpentered world, we are used to seeing those little hash marks that change direction against these lines. We assume that one must be the corner of a room, so we guess it to be further away, and one being closer to us. And so we are susceptible to that illusion, but not everybody in the world is susceptible to this same illusion. Okay, so what do you guys see here? What's on the bottle? So I asked them the very first day of class. All right, so I'm just going to predict that most of you guys saw the naked people. But if this was a kindergarten class, I would not have made that prediction. If you guys were 5, I would have predicted that you would have seen the dolphins. And in fact, when you show the same image to a series of 5-year-olds, they say, oh, the dolphin, and get all excited. So there's about 9 or 10 of them, like, this is a dolphin, that's 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 a dolphin. So they've done studies where they hang this in an art museum and they wait for families to walk by, and the adults get a little, embarrassed and so forth. The kids get very excited. So something like our station in life, our age, can affect perception. Most young children don't have as much experience with naked, adults. We hope they don't, as older people do. So they're going to tend to see the dolphins. My son is now 11, and this was the first year I asked him what he saw, and he told me he saw the naked people. So I guess it's somewhere in late childhood, early adolescence that that shifts. Classic old woman, young woman illusion here. You guys should be able to see two faces, either one face of a young woman looking away from you, or the profile of an older woman. Does everybody see both? Are you having trouble? Okay, which one are you having trouble with? You're having trouble with the older one. Okay, so it's a profile. This whole area is her nose, and this slit is her mouth, and that's her chin. So it's kind of like her chin's going into the fur of the coat there. So the reason why I asked you which one were you having trouble seeing is that older people have a tendency to see the old woman first. And if they have difficulty, it's often in seeing a young face. Younger people tend to see the young woman first. And so by and large, most of my classes are made up of younger people. They tend to have more difficulty seeing the older one. So again, your station in life can affect perception. Still looking to the... Okay, so how far away would you guys guess that the camera is from a plane? If you were just estimating in feet, what do you think here?
35.
How much? 35?
40.
40? Well, so we've got estimates all over there. Your answer changed. So the brain's going to use all the other information in the background to give us cues about what we should be looking at. So of course we assume in the first slide that this must be a normal size airplane. Obviously it's not now that we compare it to the people, and that's going to change our perception. Another example here, this guy looks like he's caught this tremendous fish, but when you pan back and the brain has the rest of the information of the picture, all of a sudden it looks pretty weird.